On April 29th, we celebrate the fifth Sunday of the season of Easter. Today's gospel comes from John chapter 15, the great consoling, strong words of Jesus. I am the true vine, and you are the branches. Remain in me as I remain in you, or abide in me as I abide in you. Here we get to the heart of Christianity. To be a Christian is maybe not so much to be an imitator of Jesus, but rather to be one in whom Jesus abides. To allow Jesus to remain in you means to let Jesus work through you, and therefore we become transformed. In our Catholic faith, this comes especially at our baptism. At our baptism, we are claimed by Jesus Christ. We are seized by Jesus Christ. Now we have a new identity. We take on the name Christian because now, as St. Paul says, it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. So in a sense, we want Jesus to commandeer our life. We want to be an instrument of His, which means that we must surrender, in a sense, my will and try to live according to His will. We also hear the line that Jesus says, just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own, neither can you unless you remain in me. All of our life comes from Christ. So the stronger we are connected to Him and allow Him to connect to us, we have life. We also know that Jesus says, my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit. The Greek word for taking away can mean two things. It can mean lifting up, like if you prop up a branch that is too weak to survive on its own, and then you allow it to bear fruit. So in a sense, Jesus says, that's what my Father will do for you. You're too weak on your own. Let me prop you up and I'll let fruit come from you. But it can also mean a pruning or a cutting away. There are certain attachments that we have in our life that do not lead us to Christ. So we want the Father to cut that out of our life. I'm reminded of the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola. In his first principle and foundation, St. Ignatius says, you have to get this part right. And if you don't, then nothing else will matter. So he says, God created us to praise, reverence, and serve God, and by doing this to save our souls. God created everything on the face of the earth to help fulfill that purpose to praise, reverence, and serve God. And then he says, from this it follows that we are to use the things of this world only to the extent that they help us to this end. So if the things of this world help us better praise, reverence, and serve God, they are worthy of us. And we ought to rid ourselves of the things of this world to the extent that they get in the way of this end. This is the pruning that I think we're hearing about in John chapter 15. We have attachments that don't help us praise and reverence the Lord. We want to prune those and cut those out of our life. So in a sense, the point of all this is that self-reliance is not the way of the Christian. To surrender and give ourselves over to Christ, that's where we find life. Abide in me as I abide in you, then you will have life.